I'm doing much better. On the road to recovery, it's got a long way to go, but feeling a little bit exhausted, but generally pretty good. I got to this point probably the last 7 years. I was in hospital 7 years ago with what turned out to be a kind of herniated disc in my spine, and through really bad misdiagnosis, I had a really bad experience in hospital, almost lost movement in my back, and um, I was healed and recovered over the next few months, but it left me pretty nervous about hospitals, if I'm honest. My back, anything to do with that, and I'm generally not very good with medical stuff anyway. When our daughter was born, we took her to get her jabs, and I'm holding her, and I said, Abby, I think I'm going to faint. So Abby comes in and grabs our daughter, and I just literally fall off the side of the chair. So I'm not very good at this kind of stuff. So found myself increasingly kind of nervous about anything to do with my back. So in the last 3 weeks, I kind of started by experiencing some soreness in my spine. It's nothing unusual for me. I often get a bit of stiffness and that, and really bizarrely kind of came out of the shower and sneezed, and I sneezed so violently it sent my back into spasm, and it flipped me on the floor. I lay there for about 20 minutes. No one was in the house. I couldn't move at all. It's like, this is not good. And it was really painful, but I thought, okay, if I can just get to a place where I can rest, I can get over this. Over the next 48 hours or so, these spasms in my body got worse and worse, to the point I couldn't move. And I woke up on a Friday morning, just unable to move, screaming in agony. I didn't know what to do with myself. Abby called for an ambulance, and they turned up and said, "Do you mind just popping up on the bed?" And she said, "Are you kidding? He can't move at all." So there was a tiny lady and a really skinny guy wondering about how they would lob me onto the bed. Eventually they got me onto a board and managed to carry me with about 6 of us out into the ambulance. We're in the ambulance, and any movement is causing me pain. So we hit some of those speed bumps really hard, and I literally grabbed Abby so hard, I was like, screaming out in pain. And they hadn't tied me to onto the bed, so we went around one corner, and I came flying out, and Abby catches me and miraculously pushing me back on. But any movement is causing me just to be in complete anguish. Once in hospital, they sedated me, but even with some pretty powerful drugs, I was in incredible pain and didn't know quite what to do. And when these spasms would come, they would just last for minutes and minutes at a time. God has moved so much in this time. It's been incredible. I'm in hospital, and in my dark moments of pain and inner turmoil, wondering, what is this going to be like? Are they going to be able to fix me, if I'm honest? Am I going to be able to play sport again? Am I going to be able to get down on the floor and run around with my kids again? Anything like that? My body keeps flipping in and out of spasms, and I'm not quite sure. They sedate me so that I can have an MRI scan on my back. Apparently, I'm quite lovely when I've been sedated with drugs, so if you got a phone call from me, I apologise for that. I came back from this MRI and slept, and the next day tension is just all over my body. I'm nervous, I don't know what to think, I'm unsure of what the next steps are, and I'm in great pain. And the doctor comes in, and I am dreading this conversation. He takes one look at me, says, "Chris, I've seen your MRI. I need to operate on you. I want you on the table tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the morning." In that moment, something incredible happened. It's almost like this physical wave of peace just hit me. It's like I was surrounded by a force field of God's peace, and from that moment onwards felt relaxed and felt okay, and just said, "Great, let's do this." From that moment onwards, there were no nerves. There was no fear or worry. I've never quite felt anything like that. They were going to come and get me at 3:30 the next morning to go for our operation. That night I slept like a baby. It was incredible. I'm a guy who gets nervous about getting up to preach the next day in church, let alone having surgery on my spine. So I slept really well. They're coming for me at 3:30 and I wake up at 3:15 and realise that Abby's woken up as well, and we stand in this darkened room praying together, just sensing God's love as we pray together. Abby glances at her phone and says, "Chris, do you realise that there are people praying for you all over the world?" Getting messages from so many different countries, people saying, "It's the middle of the night, but we're awake. We just want you to know that we're praying for you, that we're standing with you." As I went down to surgery, I felt so incredibly peaceful about all that was happening. And as I do that, I said, "God, what is it you want me to learn in this moment? What do you want me to learn in this season?" I'm lying there just looking up at the ceiling, and God gives me this picture. And it's this picture of this barren desert wasteland. And in the middle of that is a cross being hammered into the ground. And as this cross hits the ground, everything around it begins to grow again, to flourish, to turn green and other vibrant colours. And as I watch this picture evolve, it begins to stretch all across. As far as the eye can see, there is beautiful growth and flourishing. I just felt like God was saying, what you guys are doing, what the church is all about, is bringing that flourishing. As we point people towards Jesus, towards the cross of Christ, we will see the flourishing and the growth take place in our city once again. God's been saying so much during the season. We've been talking about community and this deep sense of it in the church. And I've been speaking to my spiritual director literally the day before I fell, and he said, "What is your longing in this season?" I said, "I really long to experience God in a deeper way for myself, and not simply for my church." I didn't realise I was going to have to go to hospital for that to happen, but it's been quite incredible. Over the last few weeks, we've seen extraordinary things. One couple turned up to be with us the day I went into hospital. He stayed with us the whole day and said, "Look, however long this takes and whatever we need, we're there for you." And Abby said, "Look, we know that you guys are at risk from COVID, you're older, and we're going to be in and out of hospital. We don't want to expose you to that." And he looked at Abby and said, "You need to know that that's a risk we're willing to take." They picked up our kids the next day, they played with them, they came as soon as curfew was lifted the day after and sat with Abby whilst I was in surgery. Someone came on the first night whilst I was in hospital and Abby was with me, and they came and sat and read stories to our kids and tried to help them process all that was going on around them. Adrian delivered a sermon with about 2 hours notice. Normally it takes him weeks to lead up to that sort of thing, but he just delivered that. You know, I was completely out of it and still am unable to do a lot of the stuff I'd love to do. And Abby was trying to look after kids, to look after our house, to work full time. And we just felt the church around us in such an incredible way, coming and loving us and supporting us, bringing us meals. And you guys know who you are. And these seemingly trivial things have helped us feel loved and to be known and seen, and that God is in the story. And even in some bizarre places that were unexpected, we've seen God move. The medical orderly on the ward where I was staying came in, and I don't remember him coming in the first day, and he'd seen me unable to move. He came in the day after my operation and said, would you like to have a shower? And it felt like such a kind of oasis that I was able to get a wash and have a shower. He said, "Let me help you do that." And he manages to get me out of bed. I'm able to move once again, which is incredible. He takes me slowly to the shower, and I notice a scar on his head. I said, "How did you get that huge scar all over your head?" And he said, "The job I used to do, I was beaten up pretty badly delivering stuff by some thugs, and I thought this is far too risky for my family. I want to be around for them. So I'm going to do something different." And he trained to be a medical orderly, basically the one who comes in and washes people and helps clean up the rooms. And as it's quite bizarre to hear him share his story of God's love in his life as I'm naked and being washed. It's one of my more bizarre experiences. But as he's doing that, he says this. He said, "I love doing what I do." And I got back to my bed and smiled, and he said, "You know, when when I see people smile, I feel God's blessing. I thought what an amazing lesson for us to learn in the most humble of places, to be able to see God at work in our lives in and through what we do. You know, I think on a big level this means that this is community. We've experienced it so much, and thank you so much. This is the church, this is God's bride in action. I think we can not just talk about this, but do this more and more across our city. I'm so grateful to all of you, and I miss you and hope to be back with you really, really soon. Bless you.